What's up, guys? It's Williams, aka TheSwolefessor, aka Dumbbell Slayer. Here to educate you on health, fitness, and social well-being. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about injury prevention and how to make sure that your workouts are building up your body and not tearing it down.
I am the greatest.
Alright, guys, so most people understand that working out, builds up the muscles, gives us the gains, makes us look good on the outside, but there's a huge misconception that it can kind of break your body down on the inside, in the sense of people feel like if they lift heavy or the longer you're lifting, that the worst is going to be on your joints, your tendons, your bones, etc., things like that. Guys, that's not the case at all. When you work out, yes, we build our muscles up through breaking our muscle fibers down, and then they build back up stronger. That's, we grow as we recover, but it's not just for our muscles, guys. Our bones, our joints, our tendons, like all of those get benefits from working out as well. If anything, if you're working out consistently and correctly, you should be in much better shape as far as your bones and joints than somebody who's not working out. So we're going to go over a few things that you do need to make sure that you're doing during your workouts so that you're getting the most benefit, from a health standpoint as far as your bones and joints, as well as go over some things that you need to make sure you avoid that may be the reason that you may be dealing with aches and pains and things of that nature. Alright, guys, so we're going to go over 3 things that are going to help you make sure that you, alleviate any pain, aches, injury prevention, everything like that. The first one is always, of course, simply warming up. Now, a lot of people believe that the way you're supposed to warm up is by stretching, and that is half true. The thing is, you want to make sure that you're doing dynamic stretching, dynamic movement, not static stretching. So static stretching, for example, would be if I reach down, try to touch my toes, and I hold it for 10, 15, 20 seconds. That's static stretching. That's actually going to be tip number 3 that we do after our workout. What you want to do for your warm-up before your workout is dynamic movement. So things like, high knees, back and forth, rolling your shoulders back and forth. Something as simple as getting your chest and back warm. If you have resistance bands, stretching it out, forward, behind, things like that. You just want to move. You want to get some blood flowing into the muscles. The reason you don't want to do static stretching, guys, is because that's going to, obviously loosen up the muscle. We don't want to loosen the muscle too much, guys, because we want there to be a certain amount of tightness for our explosive movements, like for bench press, row, squats, whatever. We want to get blood into the area so that we're not working out cold, but we also want to make sure that we're ready to move some heavy weight. So that's why we want to make sure we do dynamic warm-ups. And as well as simply, before you start putting some actual weight on the bar, just warm up the bar itself. That's going to help you a lot as far as injury prevention. All right, guys. Tip number 2 is going to be for during the workout, and that's simply making sure that we're using proper form, guys. Now, I'm actually going to be doing a series over, a how-to series of sorts over proper form, over big different compound movements, squats, overhead press, bench press, deadlifts, etc. So be on the lookout for that. But what I want to focus on right now, guys, when I'm talking about proper form, is making sure you're putting your muscles through a full range of motion, because that's not only good for your muscles, but it's good for your joints as well. As I've mentioned in previous videos before, it's perfect. It's perfect. So you guys, I just had this for the opening, but this is perfect. So, as I mentioned before, guys, if I'm doing a curl, I get far more benefit from my muscles starting from the bottom, coming all the way to the top, and all the way back to the bottom, than from just going from here to here, getting that partial range of motion, right? So, not only is that better for my muscle, but it's better for my joints as a whole. Because you see, from just here to here, I can still put my muscle fibers through quite a bit of work. The thing is, my joints and tendons aren't going through the full range of motion that they're meant to go through, so therefore, they're not getting as much benefit. As well, guys, and this is a huge myth I'm about to, bust right now, making sure that you're locking out on your motions, as far as leg presses, squatting, bench press, overhead press. A lot of people, especially like in the bodybuilding world, they perpetuate this thing about constant tension. Don't completely lock on the motion, you keep constant tension on the muscle. Guys, there's almost no research on that benefiting anybody whatsoever. Now, once again, that was started by a lot of people who are in the bodybuilding community, especially people who use steroids. Once again, they can do anything and get away with it. Their muscles are going to grow. But what we know for naturals is that we get the most bang for our buck as far as muscle development by putting the muscle through a full range of motion. As far as our joints and tendons, not locking out just doesn't make sense, because think about it, guys. If I'm not supposed to lock out, my arm wouldn't be doing it. Like, it's made to lock out. Our bodies are, that's what the joints are for. There's a reason that the strongest motion part of a bench press is at the very top when you're locking out, or on a squat at the very top when you're locking out. Our joints are made to do that. Now, granted, you want to make sure that you're doing so in a controlled manner. You want to make sure that, you're not having too much weight, more than what your body can handle, but full range of motion and locking out on your presses and everything like that is vitally important for injury prevention. All right, guys, so the third do is to make sure that we do our static stretching at the end. Now, as I already went over, your static stretching is going to be where you're holding a position, 10, 15, 20 seconds. You come back up, then you come back down, and you hold it again for 10, 15, 20 seconds, however long. It's just good to do at the end, guys, because after you have worked the muscles up, it's filled with blood, it's all nice and tight. Stretching out is just good for your mobility and your overall functional capability. You want to be able to be mobile, guys, like especially for your big movements like squats, deadlifts, overhead press. Like it takes quite a bit of mobility, to lift a bar up and over your head. That takes shoulder mobility. As far as squatting in deep, that takes mobility. So things like this, even like if I stay right here and I'm holding it, that's great for my hips, it's great for my glutes, everything. So stretching, especially at the end, that's when you want to do your static stretching. That's what it's there for. It's really important. Now, a lot of people, the more they do big compound movements going through a full range of motion, they find that, static stretching at the end isn't quite as beneficial for them just because they're already kind of putting their body through those long ranges of motions as they train. But for beginners, and especially people, if you feel like you get really tight after a workout, static stretching is a great way to help prevent injury as well. Especially, little things like cramps, which isn't really an injury, but it's just a pain and it helps you to not have to deal with it. All right, guys, so now I'm going to briefly go over 3 things that you make sure you don't want to do. If you avoid these things in the long term, you're just going to have a much better time as far as your workouts, injury prevention, everything like that. So the first thing is not misusing equipment. And by equipment, I'm not referring to like barbells and dumbbells, but I mean like things like lifting straps, knee wraps and things like that. For one, guys, you got to be careful with a lot of this stuff. A lot of these things were made for only a specific purpose. For example, knee wraps were made for powerlifters. That's what gear powerlifters use. Not to be confused with knee sleeves, like things that you see meat wearing sometimes. Knee sleeves, those are there for like, protecting your joints, to get blood into the area. It's really just more of an injury prevention tool. Knee wraps, on the other hand, were designed specifically to help you squat more weight. It basically turns your leg into like a spring. Like it applies external pressure, which allows you to lift more weight. Now the thing is, that's just not good for your joints. I'm not knocking geared powerlifters who use it. I understand why. Once again, when it comes to powerlifting, especially in the geared powerlifting world, the goal is to lift as much weight as possible. That's why they have like, squat suits and bench shirts and everything like that. But if that's not your world, if you're not doing that, you want to stay away from things like that because it's just not healthy for your joints as a whole. And that's why, you'll see some powerlifters who, they lift hundreds of pounds and they're totally fine and totally healthy. And you see other powerlifters where they're doing the same thing, but their joints are in pain. They're always, achy, things like that. Well, that could be one of the huge differences right there, guys. So you want to make sure that you're using equipment properly and that you're not using equipment that you don't necessarily need. As far as things like wrist straps, there's nothing wrong with them. A lot of people use them just for the sake of like, feeling a pull or row motion more in their back because it takes more of the grip out of it. But you just want to be careful when it comes to things like muscle imbalances. If you are going to be doing that, you want to make sure that you're still doing something where you can get direct grip work without the use of your straps. All right, guys, the second thing you want to do your best to try to avoid is, once again, relating to form. You want to make sure you're using proper form, but you want to mainly try to avoid our partial reps. Like I said, our bodies are designed to go through a full range of motion. You want to come all the way at the bottom of a movement. You want to come all the way to the top and lock out. A lot of people feel like doing partial reps where they're not locking out the top is actually going to be beneficial for their joints, but it's actually quite the opposite. You're not giving them any type of relief when you're just going, halfway up, back and forth. Since our joints are made to lock out all the way, and that's the strongest part of the lift where that tension is released, if you continuously just go up and down but you don't really relieve the tension, you're just putting unnecessary stress and pressure on your joints and tendons, and you definitely don't want to do that. So, like with everything else, guys, form and technique is really key. But specifically what we're talking about right now is going through the full range of motion. I know that's kind of part of the do, so I guess the don't of it is make sure that you don't do partial reps. You want to go through full range of motion. All right, guys, the third and final thing that I'm going to go over that you want to make sure you avoid is overloading the body, overloading your joints and bones specifically. And here's what I mean by that. There's a couple ways that you can go about doing that. The first one is by increasing the weight too much. Now, I know this comes from the guy that always preaches progressive overload, but remember, I told you, structure progressive overload, meaning that it's nice and gradual. You're coming in doing a certain amount of weight for a certain amount of reps, then the next time increase it 5 to 10 pounds. So doing too much weight would be, let's say that your last bench set, last day that you bench was like 3 sets of 10 with 150 pounds. And you decide to come in next time and try to do 3 sets of 10 with 205 pounds. Well, yeah, that may shock your body, which I know a lot of people are big on, but it's also a huge overload that your body just isn't used to. Not only your muscles not used to it, but your joints weren't used to it, your bones weren't used to it. So you're putting unnecessary pressure on them, because adaptation, progressive overload, needs to be very gradual. It needs to be structured. You can't just jump weight like that randomly. It's really not good for you. It's not healthy for the body at all. So you really want to make sure that you avoid that. Another way that people overwork their bodies too much and like overload their joints and everything like that is by not taking any rest days. Now, granted, your rest days can vary. Like I said, if you're on a full body routine, you may rest every other day because you're working out every other day. If you're on something like push-pull legs, then technically the only time your muscles are getting rest is when you're working another muscle. For example, if I hit push on Monday, I'm not hitting it again until Thursday. That means that my chest, triceps, and shoulders, they're going to be resting on Tuesday and Wednesday when I'm hitting my back and legs. Even though I'm still working out, those muscle groups are still getting rest. So it's important to remember, guys, that you're actually building your body up and getting stronger during the recovery phase. When we're working out is when we're stimulating growth. When we're eating is when we're giving our body the fuel it needs to grow. But when we're resting, recovering is when the growing is actually happening. That can't happen if we're constantly just tearing our body down day after day after day. So, for example, if I'm just, benching day after day after day as heavy as I can over and over and over, that's going to wear me down. Not only am I not going to get stronger, my muscles not going to grow, but it's going to put a lot of wear and tear on my bones and on my joints and on my tendons, and we don't want that to happen. So it's important to make sure that not so much taking a rest day as in you can't work out, but that you're making sure you're giving each muscle group a certain amount of rest, that you're not doing certain movements over and over and over. Granted, some movements you can afford to do that with. Like, for example, in the military, you'll find a lot of them, they do push-ups and pull-ups every day. That's different. It's a natural movement that the body's used to, the body can handle. Or even squatting. Like you guys know, I'm squatting every day, but I'm not coming in there trying to hit my max over and over and over. So if you're doing a certain movement daily for a certain reason, one, make sure that what you're doing is scientifically sound, and two, just make sure that you know the best way to go about it as far as programming it so that your body isn't going under too much wear and tear. Because I guarantee you guys, even though I'm squatting every day, like I said, I'm doing different variations, different percentages, different rep ranges, set ranges. If I went and tried to low bar squat my max every day, I promise you, my body would not be able to handle it near as well as what it's doing with the way that I'm doing it right now. So, like I said, you want to make sure that you're not overloading the body. Alright guys, so that is it. Quick 3 do's. 3 quick do's and 3 quick don'ts over what you can do to prevent injury, as well as make sure that your workouts are really going to build your body and not break it down. Like I said, guys, the fact that, achy joints and like feeling worn out and beat up, that's just part of the process of growing. No, that doesn't even make sense, guys. Like, if working out at the end of the day is supposed to be about health, it wouldn't make sense that I'm doing it just to get my muscles bigger, but then the rest of my body can't even handle or sustain it. That'd be pointless. It's very counterproductive. That's not how it's supposed to be. I myself have personally never been injured in the weight room, like ever. I've never had any injury, no broken bones, no tendon issues, no joint issues, anything like that. And the reality is, guys, statistically speaking, you have a better chance of getting injured just doing something in the real world or, playing a sport like that than you do in the gym. But that's assuming that you're working out correctly. So, like I said, just remember those 3 do's, those 3 don'ts. I really should start doing a little recap, but live and learn. Maybe I'll work on that with the next video. But like I said, guys, be on the lookout for a how-to series showing you the proper way to do different exercises. In fact, you guys, if you want, leave a comment down below. Let me know which exercise you'd like for me to go over first. There's plenty out there. There may even be some exercises that I'm not thinking to go over that you may want me to go over. So if so, leave your boy a comment down below. You already know. Like, share, subscribe. Keep it simple, specific, scientific, and I'll catch y'all later.
I am the greatest.
Someone look color! Someone look color!